This evening always inspires, never more so than in these days. There is an urgent necessity for the work that we are honoring tonight, for journalism that brings dignity, decency, justice, and counters the toxic times we live in. I'm honored tonight to speak about Ambushed at Home, an extraordinary Reuters project. In the 1990s, the military began the largest privatization of federal housing in U.S. history. Today, private contractors house some 700,000 Americans, including 100,000 children under the age of 5. The Reuters team visited 16 military bases and interviewed 250 military families, and they discovered rampant slum-like squalor. Families were subjected to hazards ranging from peeling lead paint and black mold to mice and roaches, even collapsing ceilings. Privatizing military housing is a failed social experiment that has inflicted permanent harm on many families and driven service members from the military. The arrangement is, as you might suspect, very lucrative for the private companies who secure these housing contracts. The tenants are a captive audience, while Uncle Sam blindly pays the bills. Industry profiteers, these predators, call this, quote, low risk, high reward. The Pentagon claims it doesn't even know how much it spends on rent payments to private contractors every year, not surprising since it can't even understand its audit situation. Military families who live on bases don't have basic renters' rights, and if their houses are overrun with vermin, contaminated with mold, or structurally unsound, they can't break their leases without paying thousands of dollars in penalties to the landlord. The military is in business with these slumlords, so many families fear that their careers would be derailed if they complain about their living conditions. Reuters found that landlords can and do kick families out of their homes for complaining about their living conditions. After Reuters exposed these deplorable conditions, the military did move to help some families. The Army started reporting child-lead poisoning cases to local health officials. Reuters reporting also led Senator Warren's office to conduct a months-long investigation into privatized U.S. military housing. You know, let's never forget, as we near Memorial Day, we say we respect and value the military, and yet this is closer to the reality of how we respect the military. Journalism like Reuters instigates change, catalyzes change. Quote, you all are spurring more action than laws that have been on the books for 20 years, wrote Rebecca Morley, former director of the National Center for Healthy Housing. We are very proud to award the 2019 Hillman Prize for Web Journalism to Joshua Schneer, Michael Pell, Andrea Yanuta, and Deborah Nelson for Ambushed at Home.
It's such an honor to share this stage with reporters and judges whose work we admire. We want to thank Reuters investigative editors Ronnie Green and Mike Williams, our own Alex Friedman, who is here tonight. We want mostly to thank the military families who entrusted us to tell their stories. We've got lots to celebrate today. In Myanmar, 2 of our colleagues have been freed after spending 511 days in jail for reporting on a massacre. And that was 511 days too long, but the truth has a way of getting out. And our own reporting started with a tip from an Army spouse whose little boy was poisoned by lead and permanently disabled in privately managed housing at Fort Benning, Georgia. Darlena Brown was scared and nervous when she described her family's ordeal, their landlord's retaliatory tactics, and how the Army largely ignored their pleas to protect other children from the same fate. As we explored bases nationwide, other hazards emerged. Homes overrun with mold, pests, families with little recourse against landlords, making billions from secretive 50-year contracts with the military. A baby in California would wake up soiled with rodent droppings. A child learned to walk in rain boots in a chronically flooded home. A boy at Fort Meade with special needs was nearly crushed in his bed when the rotting ceiling fell. The Army secretary later told us we'd uncovered unconscionable conditions. And in response, hundreds of families have been moved. Congress has held 4 hearings on the matter. At least 3 federal investigations are ongoing. Housing is being fixed. Contracts are being renegotiated. Military tenants are getting a new Bill of Rights. Where are children being harmed? It's a question asked in newsrooms everywhere. Whether you're a head of state, a corporate executive, a 4-star general, if your negligence, your policies, your greed puts children in harm's way, and if you're putting them in cages, we're going to be working to write about it. Here's my younger and smarter colleague, Andrea Yanuta, to finish this out.
Hello. Thank you. When we began our reporting, getting families to speak to us was a huge challenge. We'd reach out to dozens and dozens of military families who we knew had experienced housing horrors. Some days I ran up against the daily limit for how many messages Facebook would let me send, and then I'd have to wait until the next day and start again. But families were reluctant to talk for very good reasons. Powerful organizations were intent on silencing them. We learned of cases where private contractors who ran the housing had retaliated against families after they expressed concerns about unsafe living conditions. Sometimes these landlords would involve the military, putting the residents at risk for career repercussions. Many families worried simply voicing their fears could brand them a troublemaker and result in a loss of promotion or other career opportunities. It took months before many families would speak to us. Fortunately, our editors gave us the time and encouragement needed to build this trust. We visited hesitant families in their homes and explained to them our process. We answered their questions. Most often, it was mothers concerned about their children's health who showed the most courage and came forward. Then, after our first story came out in August, documenting health hazards in Army housing with empirical evidence, the floodgates opened. Suddenly, we were getting more Facebook messages, phone calls, and emails than our 4-person team could respond to. What had changed? Families experienced the power of journalism, seeing immediate action from Congress and the military in their lives. Building trust with the public, let alone a military public, often nervous about talking out of turn, is tough for the media these days. In no small part, that's due to the forces working to undermine faith in news organizations. Part of our mission is overcoming this skepticism, showing that solid, dogged reporting helps people and builds a better, healthier society. From investigative reporting to daily beat reporting, journalism exposes societal ills and allows the public to make informed decisions in all areas of their lives. When a community sees this for themselves, they do trust us. So thank you to all my reporter colleagues in this room for producing astounding work that makes this abundantly clear, and thank you to the Sidney Hillman Foundation for recognizing and elevating this work.